Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney. Good morning, Kate, and welcome to ChewsViews.
Hi, Richard. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so pleased and honored to have you on at any time. And I know that right now, and thank you for letting us play that clip of yours talking about your Bus Without Borders. And just, I can't tell you how proud we are of you. And when we say proud of somebody that's another adult, we always feel like, I don't want them to take that the wrong way. But I mean, Kate, we're proud of what you're doing. You are, to use my phrase, sleeves rolled up, elbow deep. And now you got a bus. You got a school bus. Kate, what's up with that? Tell us more.
Well, we're on our first big, multi-state tour. It happens to be summertime, and my kids are off of school, so we're blending a family trip plus a bus tour. We're in Minnesota. Of course, we live in Texas, and we've gone through New Mexico and Colorado, a few miles through Nebraska. And we did a big event at the Mexican Consulate in Denver, and that was a really interesting stop because that consulate oversees the state of Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. And it was just really interesting to talk to them and the people there about the different policies statewide. Colorado is a very friendly state to immigrants. They provide driver's licenses to people regardless of their immigration status. And they have statewide laws essentially prohibiting local police from supporting ICE activities. So it's a really great place to live as an immigrant, but they're also gearing up for enforcement actions from ICE because, as we know, the Trump administration goes after places that are considered sanctuaries. And so they're anticipating a lot more activity there, especially with the new funding. So that's been a really interesting piece of this, is to see what it's like to be an immigrant in other states. And the bus has been, just what we expected, like super welcomed, a fun thing. People are very appreciative that someone is going into their communities and bringing information. And we've also had, breakdowns and mechanical issues. All of that side of, RV travel as well.
All right. So my question is, who was the one that got out and said, okay, let me try to fix this?
Oh, definitely my husband. He is the bus driver. I have not even gotten behind the wheel one time.
Okay. Well, again, Kate, thanks for being with us, and thanks for having the creativity to do something like this in terms of literally having a bus, but also to take it to different parts of the country. As you said, you wanted to see firsthand what was happening in the areas. You know a lot better than many people that I've talked to in this space, but the community engagement part is what it sounds like has really been one of the positive pieces of this, right?
Absolutely. And that's been something that we really ramped up as soon as the election happened. We created a community engagement team within the firm and started doing just a ton of Know Your Rights events and going along with the local nonprofits and creating materials and safety planning packets. And that has been, one of the most important pieces of all of this since the election occurred. And of course, as the administration began and things were even more fast and furious and aggressive, I think, than we anticipate. I mean, I think we all knew it might look the way that it has, but I think there was some hope that it wouldn't be so aggressive and chaotic. And in any event, just the fact that we've done a lot of this community engagement has really allowed us to have a lot of conversations with people and learn from them what they're thinking about, what they're afraid of, and how best to support communities, because of course we are seeing really aggressive tactics. The detention conditions are horrific. Families are being separated. But one of the things that is happening this round is that there's a lot of people in opposition to what's happening, and there's a lot of video material of these arrests and these detentions, and people are being very brave and telling their stories. And that's, inviting the rest of the community and the entire nation to become informed and to get involved. And this public backlash that we're seeing against these enforcement activities, I think will start to have an impact. Of course, right now we're in this period of time when the enforcement activities are really heightened. People are really upset about it. And unfortunately, Congress just voted to give Trump a lot more money to increase enforcement and detention. And so I don't think we've seen any positive changes occur yet, but we have to keep going. We have to keep telling the stories, getting mad about the stories, talking about what's happening, protesting, calling our legislators, all of the stuff that we already know to do. And the more that heats up, I think we will start to see a sea change, and the enforcement and the family separations, all of that, hopefully will start to dial down a bit. I don't know. I don't know when. I don't know what the timeline is, but maybe soon.
And I know it's hard to, we're all needing to be hopeful and resilient, but I also know it's hard, particularly for someone doing what you're doing, to give hope where people feel like it's not going to actually happen, and because we don't have a deadline, and all that. I know exactly where you're coming from, and it ties to something. And there's so much to talk to you about in this space, which I know we're going to have opportunity in the next few weeks to have you back on. But this glass breaking thing has really got me. I'm sure you too. I know you too, as well. Pretty ticked off because, you know, all is needed is one shard of glass to go in the wrong direction, and someone's blinded for life. And the risk of that is beyond. This is where, I think from a legal standpoint, I mean, you have to tell us, but is there cause for class action in this space because of the harm that it can cause potentially? And in many cases, there've been an untold number of people that have been injured, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's been horrific. I mean, not to mention that there are vigilantes who are attacking women and, you know, going after people. And so really immigrants and people who have, you know, supposed law enforcement coming up to them, we really don't know whether this is a legitimate police operation or no, or isn't, you know, and they're not identifying themselves. They're in plain clothes. So it's a natural instinct, and it's legal for people to say, I'm not going to roll down my window until you identify yourself. And for law enforcement not to understand that and to just go after these people is so upsetting. And the videos that we've seen, I know we've all seen them, it's just so gross. Now, to the question about whether there's a class action here, I'm not an impact litigator, and I know that there's a lot of difficulty around bringing lawsuits against law enforcement activity, but I would say that right now there is just a ton of legal support for the immigrant community in legal services like what I do, but also in the impact litigation space, so the ACLUs and the MALDEF and the organizations like that. So I would say if anybody knows of an event like this, if they themselves have suffered it, they know someone who has, I very strongly encourage you to talk to either an impact litigator yourself, or if you belong to some sort of organization like an NAACP or a LULAC or another community group, talk to them and say, this happened to me and I want to talk to a lawyer about it, because I'm a lawyer. I know that in this space, the lawyers are looking for plaintiffs. But what can be hard is to connect the victim of one of these events to the lawyer who's doing the work, and the victims tend to go silent. They're really afraid, and people are talking to them, and media is calling them, and they just are like, I want this whole thing to go away. What I would say is, if you are one of those people, please, you don't have to talk to the media, but do your diligence and find yourself a lawyer who does this kind of work and brings these lawsuits, and find out, is there a group of plaintiffs like you that you could join? Because obviously you could get, you know, financial compensation for what happened to you. But more importantly, you could put a stop to these policies if people band together and find power in numbers. And that's not going to happen until you start looking and talking to the lawyers.
Yeah. And it's, you said it best. It's a burden in some cases for some people. There's a burden involved in that. And the burden is, I don't want to deal with it. I just want it to go away. I don't want to be the fighter here. I just want it to go away because I was minding my business, doing the best I can to survive and to live. So yes, Kate and I are encouraging those who have the desire to go forward in this space to do that. But we fully recognize that it is it's a challenging fight that you would have in front of you. But I just had to speak to this whole thing around this glass breaking. It's just, you know, it's unnecessary, and it's potentially has become harmful. Okay, let's talk a little bit about something you mentioned earlier with regard to funding. What are your thoughts around the funding that's indirectly through this bill, and how might, in your observation, this further impact this horrible situation?
I think that this bill, I call it the budget bill because I can't bring myself to use the BBB words, but this bill was so unfortunate because it really signaled to the Trump administration that it has the full support of Congress in what it's been doing. Republicans, but it made it all the way through. I mean, that's the reality, that the administration has the support to do what it wants to do, but essentially all the money it could want to open up more detention centers, to send more military down at the border, to increase, ICE cooperation with local authorities. I mean, as we know, it's the courts that are, stopping any of this. But right now, it is essentially that the president and the Congress are in cahoots with all of these enforcement activities. So we've already seen ICE ramp up its recruitment. They're offering big bonuses to people. There have been reports that the people who are attracted to positions like these are mentally unstable. And there's a lot of concerns about the type of people who are going into these jobs, and that this stuff is only going to get worse. And they have essentially, it's almost like a blank check. Yeah. Spend the money that you want on law enforcement, open up these detention centers, Alligator, Alcatraz. We've heard all about the conditions and the horrific mistreatment of people. I mean, this detention center has its own tarmac. They are deporting people directly from this detention center without due process. And, this is in Florida, but John Cornyn, a senator out of Texas, is like, hey, we want one of those centers here in Texas. And the Trump administration has all the money it wants to open up these facilities. So that's why I'm so concerned about money part of this, because that would have been, had that bill not passed, it really would have limited what the Trump administration could do. But now they are not limited financially, and that's the part that worries me.
Because they're now the biggest. They have the funding. If I have this right, that to be essentially the largest law enforcement based on funding entity in the country.
Yes,
and that's a dangerous, because now they have, to your point, they can wield that weapon to in any direction that they would want to. Not that it's fit or accurate or right or constitutionally applicable, but they've got the money to basically create their own protection racket inside of this horrible group of people. And I like what you said. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where there are some folks that are now it's essentially they're getting a bounty. They're getting bonuses and dollars that are more than what school teachers are making. And it's just, I mean, how screwed up does the country's priorities have to be to pay people bounties that would surpass what educators should be getting paid? And I just talked about this earlier. Teachers have for years been reaching out and digging in their own pockets to pay for supplies for kids. It's just, it's such a backwards, I don't want to use the other 3-letter word, way of navigating through our society right now. But, Kate, that's why I said I'm so proud of you and what you're doing with the bus. One of the things that I find really interesting is a number of people who pretend that they really care about safety in the United States, but some of the core things that we can do to provide better safety and support of those who are working their way through the immigration system is how so oftentimes people are called illegals. How do you navigate that? I had someone try to come after me about it and saying that the Democrats are supporting illegals. And how do you navigate? How do I deal with my Republican friends that say the Democrats are supporting illegals? And first of all, my response to that is that's a dumb question. But at the same time, it's not about supporting illegals. It's about trying to correct a system that needs to be a better operating system. But how do you deal with that when you hear people say those kinds of words?
Well, I mean, first of all, most of the people in this country who have been apprehended, they're in some type of process. They're applying for a U visa, a T visa, asylum. The fact is the system is broken, and there's lots of people who are in process. They're undocumented. They're out of lawful status. They have unlawful presence. I mean, it's actually a really complex thing whether someone is in legal status or not. So it's just, there is no bright line rule. And I think people want that. They want to be able to say, oh, well, this person is illegal, and therefore all of these things that are happening to them are justified and also are not going to happen to me. And that feels good and comforting and, I don't know, right to people. But the truth is that isn't the way that it functions. And the other thing that I would say is we know that it's not true that the Republicans support legal immigration and that they want, that the so-called people who are legal have the support and the protection, but the other people don't. And we know that this is not true because all of the people who have been many of the people who have been in legal status have been targeted, had their status revoked, and have been detained by the Trump administration. People who entered with CBP-1, people who entered with parole from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela, people who have temporary protected status, people from Afghanistan who supported the U.S. military in our operations there. I mean, they are going after people who are in legal status. And at the end of the day, look at the policies, look at the actions. This is not about something illegal and then they're being targeted. This is about someone is different than the policymakers. They have brown skin, they have different language, and people don't want change. And so they go after people who feel different. And that is what we've seen over and over and over again in our country's history. That is absolutely 100% what is happening now. So what I would say to anyone who says illegal is a way to make yourself feel better is check yourself, because that's not what's happening, and that's a way that you are trying to make yourself justify what's happening around you, and there is no justification for it.
That's such a fantastic answer. It is about people making themselves feel better, because if we were to go down this path and really, if it were about quote unquote illegals or whatever, however we were to frame that definition, I know for a fact, but I don't have any specific numbers because I don't need to. I know from looking at communities, there are people that are here, if we want to use that language of illegal, if they've overstayed or outstayed their visa from different parts of the world, there's people from all over the world in the United States that needs to be fixed. They need to go in and get their stuff updated, I should say. They haven't for whatever reason. They're not criminals. They're not doing things that are harmful to the country, and they look like you. Mm-hmm. And you know this as a practitioner. But what we aren't seeing is that crowd of people is being rounded up, smashed car windows, going into their schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, showing up at construction sites where the dominant is not someone of brown skin. And that's the part that the country can't get it. The country doesn't want to acknowledge, because then it makes them have to deal with the fact that using illegals is about, to your point, Kate, feeling comfortable. Because everybody that's here, that's from a brown-centered country, is here illegally. It's shameful. It's just shameful. The country has got to have some comeuppance of embarrassment on that level, because it's shameful that we're acting in this way. And I don't know.
Well, and that's the only thing that I cling to, is that I think that this is like a death grasp, what's happening with the Trump administration and the enforcement, that progress is occurring, and that we are in this moment of backslide, but at these sort of final stages of it. And we're going to, who knows when, but we're going to come out on the other side of this, and there will be a comeuppance. And the people who supported this, and the ICE agents who broke people's window, and the guards who worked in the detention centers and played mind games with people who were detained there, and people who supported this stuff on social media, they are going to have a reckoning. And some people are going to be prosecuted. I mean, there were trials after World War II, and some people are just going to be really embarrassed. And exactly when that's going to happen, but we know it is coming, and I sure hope it's sooner rather than later.
Kate and her family are traveling on a bus, y'all, throughout different states, taking her message of support and dignity, and just providing people with the opportunity to have some services along the way. And I think that the other part that can't go unmentioned, Kate, is the inspiration that this is having. And I appreciate the fact that you are putting it on the line. You do. And that's why I've been so thankful that you've been willing to be on the show with us, so that we can spread your message at light speed for anybody that's listening and you were in the country. Look out for the bus. So what's on the side of the bus?
It says Bus Sin Fronteras. It's yellow but kind of orange with stripes. You can't have a yellow bus that's not a school bus. That's against the rules. So it's kind of looks like a school bus, but a little bit different. And we should be coming through Chicago about Wednesday. Okay.
Well, then we will, we'll figure out a way to talk maybe again for a hot minute on Wednesday, if you got the time, just to let us know you're here. And I'd love to find an opportunity to come out and meet you. So we got to exchange that information so I can come to where you are going to be. Hopefully the time of the day works out. But Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, immigration attorney, rock star that's making it happen, guys. You have to follow her. You have to get with what she's doing. She's got a bus, y'all. She's got a bus. Kate, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me this morning. Take care.